Hi guys, and welcome to another tutorial. Today I decided that I was going to make a little folder file pocket. I've seen lots of pictures of them on the Facebook groups, and I decided I was going to try and make one for myself. Now I haven't seen any tutorials on this one, so I've not got anyone's video to send your way. I'm just going to make it up the way I would do it. I'm taking this large piece of music paper and I'm going to fold it into quarters because this is going to be the sort of size of my file folder. I would say this is just a bit larger than an A4 sheet of paper. It might be like a large sized American letter. Yes, I am wearing my dressing gown in this. It is like 7 AM when I was filming this. I just got up and decided I was in a crafty mood. So I'm going to cut my bit of paper into 4. That means I can make 4 of these little folders for a little matching set. I like when I make things that it easily makes multiple and you're not making a fiddly one item thing. You could just bulk decorate these all at the exact same time. I'm only going to do one in this video just for your benefit, but if I was doing this off camera, I would be decorating all 4 of these at the exact same time and ending up with 4 gorgeous little file folders. Okay, so once you've cut them into 4, we're going to take the little pile and we're going to fold them in half again. And this is going to create the size of our little file pocket. Then I am going to clip them all together because we're going to cut out the upper tab. Now I'm looking for... I don't know what I was doing here. Oh, I was going to draw it. That's what I was doing. I had a moment there. It's way too early in the morning. So I'm just going to roughly draw out the tag that I want to draw. You just basically are going to draw a straight line across your paper and leave yourself one little rectangle that sticks up, but you can curve the edges of your little rectangle. Then we're going to peg our pieces of paper all together so we can cut all 4 at once, because I love to do everything in simplicity and multiple at once. Do you like my pegs, by the way? I made these. I might do a tutorial on them. They're so handy when it comes to clipping things together. So yeah, you need a pair of scissors and you're going to cut the top tab off your little file folder. I've obviously lost my scissors. Here we go. So yeah, keep them nice and tightly held together. I'm straightening them out just to make sure they're all in line. And then I'm going to cut these little tags out. Now you can totally freehand this. You don't even need to draw it if you're really good at cutting straight lines. I need the guides because I am the world's worst at cutting straight lines. So that's kind of the shape you want. Your little tab should be off to one side, like so. And that is basically the basic shape of your file folder. As you can see, and I have 4 of them. So yeah, you're going to fold it back in half and you're going to finger score along your seam just to make it nice and crisp. Just using the edge of your nail. And you have one file folder ready to use. And you can take it one step further like I am here and curve the corners at the back edge. It'll just make it even fancier. We like a little bit of fancy. I'm using a punch, but you can just draw around a coin and then trim them off with scissors. And we have one ready to decorate little file folder. These have been really popular. I've seen many pictures in the groups of people turning them into vintage ID holders. I could have found a tutorial, but I decided I was going to do it myself. So if I'm doing it different to anyone else, it is what it is. Pick your method, whatever works for you. So now I'm going to, this one is just a plain white paper, so I'm going to grunge it up a little bit because you know I love my vintage. So I'm using Vintage Photo and I'm first going to go around all the edges with my little sponge dabber thing. What even is this thing called? No idea. Blendy dabber thing. I'm going to go all the way around the edges very lightly so you don't catch the edges of your paper and make them curl up or tear. I have a little bit of cold, so if you hear me sniffing, that's why. I'm going to go all the way around. Now be careful when you get to your tab. I have a tendency to catch it with the dabber and lift it up. So very light hand here. That's why the ink looks a little bit lighter when I get there. And then I'm going to go around in a circle, as I always do, and get smaller and smaller, and it helps blends in all those edges and covers pretty much all of your paper in a vintage look. Okay, I'm going to do only the top half of the back, the bit that will be on show when your little file folder is folded, so it's the bit that peeks out behind. You don't really need to do more than that. You're not going to see the rest. I mean, you could do it if you are really anal about that kind of thing, but I'm not. See, that's the only bit you can see. Okay, so now we're going to decorate it. Woohoo! We are going to make this. When I started making these, the idea in my head was to arrange my seed collection. So originally I wanted to make these like seed pockets, but somewhere along the path of creation I got sidetracked and forgot that that was my intention. Also, once I made it, it's not big enough for any of my seed packets. So later on, I think I'm going to come back and address pockets for seed packets and make some kind of organization. Okay, so this stamp here, I'm going to put all the links to the stamps below. They're from Amazon. They were really inexpensive. These were a pack of 4 large stamp sets that was really inexpensive. So I'm going to put links below. I'm using this sideways one with the dandelion. No, yeah, dandelions. Yeah, that's dandelions. I forget my flowers. I'm going to be using my stamping pad. Oh, why am I so crap at names? Anyway, it's just helpful if you need to stamp an image multiple times just to get a good print. You don't need to use this. You can just use a regular acrylic block and just apply appropriate pressure. But sometimes I like to go over the same stamp twice if it's something big like this, just to ensure I get like a perfect print. I will also put a link to this stamping pad thing down below because it also was not that expensive. I have an Amazon storefront where I keep all the things that I use most often under a tab, so I will put that one link below, and if you click on it and go to it, it will have everything you see in my videos that I use frequently, and it will also have all the stamp sets that I use in my videos. I add to it every time I buy something new. This is another one of the stamp sets that came in that same set of 4. I was thinking about using some of these little stamps, but I want something a little bit more document related. So this is the 3rd one from that same kit, and it has, I think I was stuck here trying to figure out what I wanted. I knew I wanted something that looked like file, not too postagey. So I kind of compromised here. I use a number and then I use a stamp, a circle, like a postage mark stamp. Even though technically that's not very filey, it's more postagey, I use it anyway. Okay, so I've selected my stamps and I'm going to stick them over to one side because I actually want to put images on the other side. I want to make this a little bit colourful. I'm using a new ink today, one that I actually just got. It is called, oh, I can't remember now, something plaid. It's one of the ink distress inks in a red colour. I cannot think of the name of it. If you can see it on the screen, that's what colour it is. That will also be in the Amazon links if you like the colour of it. So first of all, I'm showing you here, I've got this spilled coffee stamp on the back of my acrylic block. I've had it for years. I will try and find it. There's a good chance I'll not be able to have had it such a long time. I leave it on my block permanently because I use it frequently. So I've done that in the vintage photo just to make it more grungier, and I'm going to take my postage stamp in the red that I just bought and I'm going to apply it to the top corner. I'm just layering some stamping here to make the folder look like it's seen some life. You know, it's been through some things. It's been stamped here and there. It's had stuff spilled on it. The goal is to make it look a little bit like it's from the past era. I'm going to dive in with a black ink now, and I'm going to take that number stamp. I find changing your colours of inks, so starting light and getting darker as you go, is a really good effect if you want some of your stamps to show up more than others rather than all becoming just a big massive mess. Change your colours, switch it up. As you can see, that number stands out more than the background stamping. Okay, I think that's enough with the stamps. Now I want an image. So I'm going to go and look in my stash. Okay, so when I was going through my stash, I found this. This was a bunch of covers from things I'd bought in the past. So the boxes that stickers and stuff come in. And I really loved these bees. They are so freaking cute. I now need to find the things that I bought from this packaging because I have no recollection of buying anything bee themed. So maybe somebody gave this to me because it was pretty, but now I'll be on the hunt for this. So at first I was going to keep the entirety of the outside of this little faux ripped vintage paper that the bee is on. I went to all the painstaking effort of cutting it out. I really hate fussy cutting. I have got really bad coordination with my hands, and cutting I'm not that great at cutting things out, as you can tell by how much I suffer with trying to cut straight lines. So anyway, I cut this out and then realised it would cover so much of the little file folder, and I just didn't like that look. I'm not about that life. Why do the work if you're going to cover it up? So I decided I was going to cut around the actual bee itself. Now, a good trick if you hate fussy cutting is to leave yourself a little border. Leaving yourself a little border means you can pass by all details in a really easy way. And in my opinion, when it is inked and stuck to a piece, it looks just fine. Sometimes it looks better than fussy cutting properly and cutting out all those details, because sometimes you're not very good at getting all the details. So I feel like this is a fail-safe way of cutting out images. You just loosely leave a little border around every single detail. And I'm going to stick. Doesn't he look fabulous? I love bees. But weirdly, I'm actually deathly allergic to bees if I get stung. And I have been stung in my past. That's how I know I'm deathly allergic. But I do love them. Okay, I'm also going to cut out this flower because I like the fact that it is the same colour palette as the bee exactly, and it's going to bring a little bit of cohesion to my little file that I'm making. Plus, I was in the planty theme of, still in my head this was going to be a seed packet container, even though it does not end up being that. Okay, I cut out that whole image even though I knew I was only going to use a part of it because I can keep the bit that I cut off. As you can see, I'm only going to use this part. I'm going to keep the rest of it for something else because that is just way too pretty just not to keep. So I'm going to use this here and I'm going to stick the little bee up a bit so you can still see some of the dandelions peeking through from my first stamp that I used. And then I'm going to ink around the whole of my little image sort of carefully. One, it takes away the cut edge look and makes it look like this was always intended to be a little piece of ephemera rather than something I cut out, and it also brings cohesion to my entire palette because of the vintage grunginess is on everything. That's a little trick that I do whenever I'm compiling lots of images. One ink on everything and it brings it all together. Okay, so now that I know where that's going to go, I'm just going to settle it in place. I think that looks pretty good. Now I could add a whole bunch to this little file, but I think that's a good little arrangement there, a good little layout. But I do think the inside needs something, and I noticed that the packaging has this little edge here that might look pretty cool. So I'm going to cut myself a strip. I'm going to attempt to cut myself a straight strip. It's probably the straightest thing I've ever cut in a long time, if you don't look too closely, and I'm going to measure it and make it fit on that inner edge. As you can see, the part that is not straight is my own music paper for some reason. So I have to trim my music paper. But yeah, I'm very much someone who never measures anything. I'm not someone who will get out a ruler and tell you it's going to be this size by this size. I make everything to fit whatever it is you're using. So I give you a rough guide and you can make things any size, and then I show you how I measure things to make them fit the size you're working with. To me, that's a far better way than telling someone it needs to be 4 inches by 3 inches. Just make it to suit the paper that you're using, and then as you go, do this. Measure things as you go, line them up, cut them to fit. That's a much better process, I think. So yeah, I'm going to also ink up the edges of this, but as I'm doing it I realise I've not made a very good job of cutting this one corner, so I'll try to fix it. You know, as they say, try. I somehow make it worse and end up having to trim it. So yeah, I am not the world's best or most delicate or most precise crafter. I'm very fingers and thumbs and sometimes very chaotic. And it is, you know, it always works out in the end. So I'm going to ink up all my edges and then I'm going to glue it on to the back panel. Now, if you're going to glue something on in the area where paper's going to slide in and out, make sure you glue it all the way to the edges and use a very secure, strong glue. And I'm actually patting myself on the back because this is the 5th project I've made this week where I did not use my sewing machine to stitch things down. I normally sew everything. Excuse my glue, it does this every time I use it. It's kind of satisfying though, pulling that glue out. I'm just waiting on the glue running to the tip of the nozzle. Okay, I'm going to glue all the way to the very edges with this glue. This glue is also in my Amazon list, which will be below. I love this glue, but it is a little bit on the pricey side for a little bottle of glue. Okay, all the way to the edges. And then position it. I also like the fact that when you put this down, the glue still gives you a couple of minutes of maneuverability. You can slide your things around. And then I'm going to glue on the little front pieces. I feel like I should have a whole bee themed project soon, just for my love of bees. And if I find out where this little bee card came from, I'm hoping it's supplies that I have bought and forgotten about, and not that someone gave me this card, because this looks like it would be cute, whatever was in it. Okay, so there's my bee going on, and they're looking, I love how they look with the vintage look palette behind it. Everything seems to tie in so nicely. Okay, so now we've done that. Before I glue it together, I'm just giving it a last look. I think the front is pretty much done. I had an urge to add some green, like some leaves and stuff, but then I thought, no, you know what, I think it's fine where it is. I even thought about taking the little tag off of this, but yeah, I was like, no, I have something that I can use later that I want instead of that tag, so I'll come back to it. Okay, on the back it felt a little bit plain, so I'm just going to stick the stamp on there that I used previously. I'm just going to use the red just to bring the red to the back as well. I mean, the backs, you never really see the backs of these things in my projects because I tend to either glue them into projects or slide them into things, and nobody really looks at the back. But you know, give the back of your thing some love. It's totally up to you. And I'm using a little date stamp. I think that's like a planner stamp. That one I know is already on the Amazon list because it's on a stamp set that I showed you in a previous video. So that's just to fill up my back a little bit. And as you can see, it's totally squint. But that's fine. It's just, you know, adds to its charm. And we're now going to address this little tab. I feel that it sort of blends into the back a little. So I'm just going to attack it with my red ink. Yes, attack, because there's no grace involved here. I just kind of smear it and then wipe it off of my bee's wing before it dries. And there we go. It shows up a little bit better, just so it doesn't get so lost. And now I'm going to glue it. Now it's a little bit of foreshadowing. I realised that sliding cards in and out of this little file is not that easy because I glue it shut. You don't need to glue your sides shut. You can leave it as an open file and just put a paper clip on it. I've seen many people do that, but I want mine closed, so I actually come back and address the ease of pulling cards in and out of it after I make the card that's going to go inside it. Okay, so I'm just making sure I get it to the edges. Now, the only thing about gluing things like this is your glue is going to spread out a little bit when you shut it. So when you make your card, you have to take that into account when cutting the size of your card, that you're not making the card to fit perfectly to the edges. You need to make it a little bit smaller because the glue has lost some of your space inside. And there's nothing wrong with the ones that are just folded in half with a paper clip. They look really cute. It's just your preference. Glue it, don't glue it, it's up to you. I'm going to ink around all the edges with a darker shade of ink just to give it a finished look, Just adds like a slight border to it, even though I already used the vintage ink. And I'm going to use more of that packaging because the back of it is really cool. It's like coffee stained, splattered old paper, but it's card. So I'm going to get my cutting mat, and this is how I figure out the size that it needs to be. Just moving stuff out the way. First of all, I'll give myself a straight-ish. Let's just agree that nothing is ever straight on this channel, so we will use the term straight-ish, and that is perfectly acceptable. We'll use a straight-ish line as the starting base of our card, and then we're going to put our folder next to it, and we're just going to roughly guesstimate how deep we want the card to be. And yes, I move it and lose my place, so I have to do this again just for a rough guide. And as you can see, I put the ruler totally nowhere near where that guide was. I don't know. It was 7 a.m. people. I hadn't even finished my first cup of tea of the day. And then I decided to line it up with the board to get a straight edge because I struggle with those. And fortunately for me, that actually works out the depth of it. Now to get the width, I'm just going to guesstimate how narrow it needs to be. And the first cut I actually make is not narrow enough because I didn't take the glue into account, like I said. So I end up trimming a little bit more off it. But this is just that packaging that the bee was on. This is the back side of it. It's just, I'd say about maybe 300 GCM card. And as you can see, as I go to put it in, I realise that the glue stops it from going in. So I'm just going to trim it a bit smaller. This is what happens when you craft before breakfast. Your brain is still struggling to wake up. So once it's in there, I can see, yep, that's going to work, that's going to fit. But as you can see, getting the card in and out is not that easy. So I will address that. I will come back to that. So now, for the back of my card, to hide this, I am going to use some paper. I have a little stash of tea stained papers and book pages and things that I keep in a special box that are not that are more genuine vintage. So I can't speak today. The book pages you're about to see, I did not tea stain them. They were genuinely this colour when I got them. They were sent to me as a gift. So this is my special box that I keep things like this, and then some handmade papers. So yeah, this one particularly I think looks really good with the colour palette of the bees. So I'm going to use this book page. I think I only have one of these pages. So it's like my little gold dust collection of things. I'm going to use my really strong glue. This glue is really good for adhering paper down in large areas because it doesn't really wrinkle the paper up. I've heard Fabri-Tac doesn't really wrinkle paper up either, but I like this glue. I might try Fabri-Tac in the future, but for now this one is my favourite glue. Make sure you get all the way to the edges because you want a nice seal, and then position your book page over it in a place that you think is going to look nice, and then I turn it over just to make sure it's straight so that the lines of the writing will be straight. It's a great thing about that glue, you can still slide it around for a few minutes. Then I'm going to trim around it, get it the perfect size. This is a little cheat's way of always making sure you have the perfect size. Glue something onto something bigger, then trim it. Don't try and trim it first. Don't try and make it fit. Do it after. It's the fail-safe way of cutting things. Okay, once I've done that, I am going to round the corners of this to make this look more like a little ID card that you would slide into a file. Once again, you don't need a punch. You can use a corner of something that's rounded, or a coin, or the bottom of a bottle, or even a bottle top lid. Just keep one in your stash so you can draw around it to do little curves. And then we're also going to ink the edges of this to match our little file. One day I might move on from vintage photo, but for the time being this is still my go-to colour. So if you get sick of seeing it in videos, sorry but not sorry. I just really like it that much. I really like the vintage look, and I think it's the perfect colour to fake some tea stain when you need to do it on small areas. Okay, so I'm doing all the way around the back and the front. Now this card doesn't need much done to it because I want this to be like a little spot to add some writing to. So now as you can see, it fits in perfectly, but getting it out, kind of awkward because we have sealed edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a little tab in my file. You don't need to do this at all, but I like things to be useful, easy to pull things out of. So because I've already glued it, it's going to be a little bit awkward, but I can slide my punch inside it, just going down a little ways to make a little tab. If you're going to do this, then obviously do it at the stage before you glue your pocket shut. There we go. I don't think it ruins the look of it. I think it looks absolutely fine. And once your little card is in there, you don't actually see this part. It just means getting it in and out makes it so much easier because you have a little thumb hold. Okay, so we're going to stick that in there. And as you can see, so much easier to pull out if you don't put it in when the glue is still wet. Do not glue your cards into your file, people. I almost did that here. My glue was still damp. So there we go. There's our little pocket. And now we're going to address when I said I had little tabs that I was going to put on the front of this. I do. I went rummaging around and I found these. Now these quotes, I got them from AliExpress, and some of them just make me laugh so much. They've been badly translated, and some of them are really funny, but then some of them are not quotes you would actually want to put on things. There's one or two of them that's a little bit insulting. I just think they're hilarious though. So I'm trying to figure out which one I'm going to put on. Now with things like this, you don't need to use the whole sentiment. You can cut them up. You don't need to leave them as they are. You can steal certain words. So I was just looking to see which parts of one I wanted. At first I thought maybe a singular word at the top of my folder, and the way my head was on the B has black in it, so these black sentiments will tie in the black and just bring more like symmetry and cohesion to my little file, and they will stand out. I did think about putting the I love you, and then I was like, I'm not that kind of gushy person, so I'd rather not. I think I end up using this one, the tomorrow is always fresh. I think the rest of that is something about because mistakes have not yet happened, but I don't want the mistakes bit. I just want the first part of the sentiment. So I am going to find the scissors that I have buried, and I'm going to cut up this little sentiment. The tomorrow is always fresh. I don't know, it just to me made me think of spring. Being tomorrow is always fresh. When you get to spring, every day new little things popping up out of the ground. And apparently it is a quote from Anne of Green Gables. I did not know that, even though I've read that book. And then I'm going to figure out where it's going to go, and we'll tuck it a little bit behind that B. So all that is left for me to do is peel my stickers with some effort. Does anyone else find peeling stickers an absolute pain? Even using the edge of my blade, it still took me a few attempts. I don't know, maybe it's because I have really bad coordination, and peeling stickers, as you can see, I'm getting really frustrated. Peeling stickers is torturous to me. But I do manage to get it, and thankfully when I do the other one, it's not as much of an ordeal as this one. It's one of the reasons I don't use double-sided tape all that much, because I spend more time peeling double-sided tape than is healthy. It takes me like 10 minutes to get one strip, and by then I'm totally over it, and I'm like, I don't want to do this project anymore. So, you know, glue is a win for me. And here we go, painstakingly watching me peel the second one. Okay, so that one is going under the edge of the B, which thankfully is still a little bit wet, so I can lift it up. And I think we're done with that. I think this looks pretty good. I'm just going to smooth those stickers down, make sure they really stay. Then I'm just going to run a little bit of ink over them. It just blends them a little bit more and tones down the white of the writing and makes it look a bit older. And then we're going to stick our little card in. But I think the card needs some stamping, because now the card looks very plain and not that it was made for it. So I'm taking that red ink. I think it is like Lumberjack Plaid it's called. I will find out and put it below. I'm just going to use one of the stamps to stamp that in red, and then I think I put a little bit of black on too, just to bring everything to it is a set, it is a cohesive set. Or maybe I don't put the black on, I thought I did. But it looks cute. And I think it also needs something sticking out beside it, so because that card just kind of gets lost in there. So remember the tickets we made on our previous video? I think one of them might work. Oh, if you want these tickets, there is a video for these tickets and a free printable for this one. This one's a printed one. I haven't done the back of this one. I was just seeing how it was going to look. If I was going to use this ticket, I would address the back and, you know, ink it up. And then there's these ones that I started making from napkin paper, but no, that doesn't look right either. I feel like it needs something a little more official. So this is a pre-printed receipt. I'm just going to fold it in half and stick it in there. I think that's done. I think it looks absolutely fabulous. You could add little bronze paper clips or whatever, but I like it the way it is, and I'll see you in the next video.